He is Syracuse through and through. He won a national championship with the Orange. Fred Cambria joining me, and he has done so much in the world of television. And he is currently the executive producer for Cage Fury Fighting Championships. And he joins me on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, and this is a way in which we look at those in sports media, Fred, and we're going to talk about the personal life, which I love, and we're going to go in a unique direction here. You've got a long list of achievements, but while you're known for that, you're known for a lot more, and we're going to find out what that is. I appreciate you doing this and joining me.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Let's go.
All right, so you're working right now in cage fighting, so how long would you last in the cage?
In the cage.
Yourself?
Do I fight somebody?
Yes.
Because I could last all day in there. They can bring me food if I'm myself. Um, no, I would not last long. I have such respect for the athletes that enter into the cage. So I wouldn't even pretend. Some of the great folks I work with, they have that in their background. I don't. I didn't really even know the fighting business. I knew it from afar. And it's only in the last 2 years that I've seriously immersed myself. Grateful for it. Again, the athletes and I like the promotion. CFFC is they're awesome. Those guys really know what they're doing, and I like that.
You know what they're doing. You're helping them in what they're doing, having you along with them on their team. How are you able to really inject your skills, your acumen on their product and help it grow and get to the next level?
So you alluded to Brian. You alluded a little bit earlier in the introduction. Many different opportunities, jobs, whatever you want to call them, that I've had in my career, my life here. And just the other day, I think it was this past Monday, I was sitting with Rob Hadak, who's the CEO, um, and we were going back and forth. We have a very busy schedule coming up, and we were going back and forth on stuff. And I honestly said to him, I said, I don't want to go anywhere else right now because I get to use all my skill sets, and they let me. Get to use all the tools that so many different scenarios have played out in my career, that in this particular moment, with these particular athletes, and bosses, if you will, it's a good fit, and I'm grateful for sure.
The tools that you bring, what is the sharpest of all the tools that you have?
Respect. The second we've met each other, I always look at it from a respect. I'm going to give you respect. We may know each other for 10 minutes. We may know each other for a week and a half during an event. We may know each other for a lifetime. Um, that's one of the things I'm really uh, hopeful. Now, where it goes after that, human the human element gets in the way. But your question is, where do I first enter? I enter this as I'm respecting that you're a professional, because I'm going to come at you with, I'm going to be as professional as I always am.
When you give that respect to somebody else, how does that help the team?
It sets a tone. It sets a tone, right? So, I mean, it's in any business. It's what I love about this is we come together, and you do this so well, right? You were one place, now you're in another place. You're with a new cast of characters. There are some consistencies, and you want that one common denominator to be that we're here, we're pros, let's respect each other, we're going to get this done. Again, it works most of the time. There are times it doesn't. Miscommunication, um, hopefully egos get put aside on this stuff too. So I think it just sets the tone. Then everybody, and we always have a good time. Once you understand that, it's like we can have a blast. We can dance, we can get good shots, we can be creative, the talent. For us, it's John Morgan and CM Punk, some of the best talent I've ever worked with. Great chemistry. When the crew, and you know this, you're on talent, right? When the crew is really gelling and getting it and can understand it, and the EVS is getting the right shots, and the producer's getting the right shots, and you've put all that together, and that's a skill set because we've approached it from respect. We've entered into this agreement respecting each other that, yeah, it's a 1 day set, shoot, strike. You're going to get paid for it, and let's have some fun.
How hard in this business, as you were growing, Fred, and building up your experiences and looking at your portfolio and your resume of work, how hard can it be to gain that respect from colleagues in the industry as you're working your way up and you're creating that name for yourself?
Consistency, right? You have to be consistently that way. Don't be a fraud. The people like children and dogs, right? Like they know when they this industry has so many great professionals, like any, and I've been in many different industries, but we're talking about what we do right now. Um, there's so many great professionals that you don't need to be anything other than who you are. And if you start pretending, you're probably not going to get called again. So,
They called on you when it comes to lacrosse
yeah.
at Syracuse, and by no means are you a pretender. Your legacy and what it's tied to as far as that university and as far as your lacrosse super skills, where do you feel like you looking at me like you're like super skills? What is he talking about?
So this is where you learn. This is where I learned early on, and my mother and father put me in team sports early on. Um, Football, uh, baseball, basketball. I got into middle school, and all the cool kids were playing lacrosse, and none of the cool kids were playing baseball. So I went and tried lacrosse. Um, and so this is a long time ago before it became this multi-billion-dollar industry. Um, that I picked it up, and I think it's like 5 years later. I'm in a national championship game. Now, here's where I smirked. I was a role player. I was not a superstar at all. I know my role. And again, that goes to the whole respect
Yeah.
who and what your role is. Um, I I was blessed, believe me, to play with Hall of Famers. I had a Hall of Fame coach, Roy Simmons Jr. Unbelievable. This man has shaped more men, I think, only next to God. Honestly, he has shaped more men next to, and only God has shaped more men. Roy Simmons Jr. He's the head coach, men's lacrosse coach, and West African art aficionado. And so when you go into these scenarios where you say, okay, lacrosse, what does it mean to you? It means a lot, right? I was won a national championship, played in two national championship games, and after that continued. I coached. I
Mhm.
still coach. Um, it allows me to kind of stay in that format that you're part of something. You're part of a team, and you want to achieve something great. And that's what I like to do. If you look at a national championship gold ring, I was fortunate enough to win an Emmy. I've been on a lot of teams that achieve, a lot of teams that get together. And that's the respect and what we understand it to be. When if you're going to come and work with us, this is what we expect. We expect that, we're going to really bring it to the top and really make sure that we're nailing it. And that's what we try to do. And that's what lacrosse taught to me. And Roy Simmons Jr., you can't say enough about that man. He's the best.
You mentioned you knew your role when you were playing lacrosse and at Syracuse, and you knew what that looked like. And then as that relates to the industry, there is that role that you play. And here you are in a team atmosphere in college, and you're in a team atmosphere in the broadcasting sector. And it has to come to put together these things, it needs a team. It requires manpower and synergy and chemistry. But
Yes, sir.
what do you feel like you can do on your own? So much in this industry you can't do on your own,
Oh, yeah.
broadcasts and stuff like that. But what can you, Fred, do on your own? What can somebody do on your own without a team?
What can I do on my own?
Or what can, as far as everything when it comes to a broadcast is team related. You have a
Correct.
sports background as well, and that's team related. But yeah, what is
I
your
suck. Here, let me help. I suck at darts. I suck at ping pong. I suck at pool. I was never in the basement games. I'm horrible at those things. I like people going, let's shoot pool. I'm like, okay, here's my money. Darts, I'm not good at. Golf, I don't have the patience for it to be, or the money for it. So I've just always excelled. So if you're going to ask me what I can do on my own, um,
yeah.
I'm I do a lot of driving on my own. Honestly, I travel so much. I drive, so I can on my own. I can get from point A to point B.
What do you think?
Totally self sufficient. All
What
right, I don't need anybody else's help, and I can get the rest of the team there eventually as well if we have to. Um, but it's not so much. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know.
yeah.
Right? I know what I know, and I know what I like. I can't do EVS. I can't do Chiron. I can't do expression. Um, I've directed live. I've produced live, but I've never switched live. I can't do TD. I could never mix. Maybe I can't. No, I can't shade. So these are. It's for me. It's about knowing what I know and knowing what I don't know, and it's that knowing what I don't know that I see as the opportunity. Right? It's the opportunity to meet somebody new. It's the opportunity to grow your network. It's an opportunity to give somebody else an opportunity, right? You know, we do that a lot. We do that a lot at Cage Fury, and I love that about the bosses there, Brad and Rob. They're like, if you can give somebody an opportunity that had never worked on the cage, on a camera, over on a cage, that's a hard job. That's a really, I've never done that. I could. I've told Gary, our director, that if he ever got in a pinch, I'll go grab a camera, but I'm not very good at it. I could function it. But we've given people who've never done it and they work with Gary, who's an Emmy award winning director, and they come out of it and they're better people. And that's a great part of this as well. You know, you got to give people an opportunity. So, you know, when you ask me what can I do my own, I can get to point A to point B and then C, D, E, and F. I can do that, but it's not really a lot of fun.
How much did it take you from a self-reflection standpoint or a realization to know here's what I do know and here's what I'm good at and here's what I don't know, and that's okay because I'm going to have somebody help me and it's a team. Can be that desire to want to know everything and do it all, and but sometimes that gets in the way of the product and what it can achieve. Where did you find that sweet harmony between here's what I do know and I'm really good at it, and then everything else there's going to be a team around me?
That's a good question. I you don't know when you're really going to grow up, right? Per se, grow up. I'd say the last 5 to 10 years, I've had a lot of self reflecting. I've had, you know, you talk about what can you do on your own. I can certainly think myself into an issue. Um, and that's always dangerous living in your own head, right? So, um, a lot of humility, a lot of desperation, and a lot of time to reflect on what can you give, like what can you give to this to what can you give really, right? So um, that's where that got in. I have to say, in the last like 5 to 7 years, I've really been able to say, you know what, I don't have to do it all. I really don't. Um, and there's a lot of like there's so many talent, Brian. There's so many talented people oh my gosh, right? You work with so many talented people. I get to, work with them as well. And that's a lot of fun.
It is. And those talented people think you're talented as well, as I do think you are talented
Oh,
yourself.
thank you. That's
How
nice.
do
Thank
you
you.
how do you take a compliment?
Thank you.
So that's the first thing that you'll say anytime somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Fred, that was a great broadcast."
And if they go on and on and on and on, I'll pause. But then when it's my turn to speak, first of all, I want to thank you. That was very nice that you took the time. So the film Lost Trophy. If somebody comes up to me and says, "I love the trophy. I love the," thank you very much for taking the time. That's really what it is. You just want a compliment is just something that they're taking the time to give you their opinion on something. And there's a lot of people that don't come up and give you a compliment. There's a lot of people that come up and say not nice things to you, and you got to take that too. Again, we're talking about a long career here, so it's not been all rainbows and unicorns. There's a lot of people that haven't gotten to understand, I guess, that it's not about them. It's about us. It's about a we. We is greater than me, right? So that's what I like to look at.
Yeah,
I
and
can't do this by I can't do life by myself. I can't do a gig by myself, and that's okay. I can, but again, if you live up here too much, it's a problem. I'm getting a little philosophical here on you, so
which is exactly the road I wanted to go down. As you know, Fred, I love to go into this realm. I'm all about that. And you're probably like, well, this is what I thought. But you know what? This is what I love about it, because then we get into some really deep conversations. And you had said that, the great compliment you would get from your work is that if somebody tells you, hey, I watched this, I spent the time, and then you're reacting to them and saying, thank you for taking the time. So if you're looking at a compliment hierarchy of all the things that somebody could say to you to give you a sense of praise over your work, what is higher than somebody going to you and saying, I watched your work from start to finish and I liked it, and they took the time out of their day? The idea of taking time out of their day to watch your work, where does that stand in the complex of hierarchy of compliments and what matters most to you and what you want to hear?
hmm. So I'm going to go the slightly business way on this. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad you took the time to watch the film. You got any projects you're working on? I, a compliment would be somebody wants to work with you, right? Like that would be in the hierarchy of compliments, so to speak. That's what I would note, if you will.
What's it like working with you? How much fun are you having?
I try to have a lot of fun. It's interesting. I walk about anywhere between 9 to 11 on a show. I'll walk between 9 and 11 miles, and that is because number one, I got to get my steps in. But and just as important, to be honest with you, is to make sure that people are in a position to succeed. Do you have what you need? This person does it now. Again, I might not be able to give you what you need to succeed at that moment, but I'm on a headset, I'm back in the truck, I'm back over to the talent, and I'm making sure that this thing, everybody has what they need to succeed. And it starts in the truck. It starts with the producer and the director. Do they have what they need to succeed? Um, and that's how I look at this thing. That's how I look at this thing. So I put on a lot of miles and I love it. You meet a lot of people, you got a problem with it, and if you're really on top of it, you're anticipating it.
Mm.
You're seeing that there's going to be a clog at a certain point that you're able to maneuver something this way to alleviate the clog. Nobody sees it. Nobody understands what happened. You just know that made that much smoother so that the handheld guy who was backing up didn't bump into it. It's those little things. It's those little, Let me get this out of the way. Let me move this. I'm going to move this person out of the way. John Morgan needs something. How can I help John and CM Punk succeed? Ultimately, if at the end of the immediately after the show, if Rob and or Brad are pleased, then we're good. If there have been no major issues, which, knock on wood, we try to desperately to alleviate, that's what we do.
You said that you're really good at anticipating what's happening before it happens in a broadcast, in a sense of planning. And they say that it's impossible to predict the future and it's impossible to read somebody else's mind. But by the way that you are articulating, it sounds not only are you looking ahead into what could be to help the broadcast, making sure things are in the right places in case something happens, and then thinking, okay, this is what so and so is thinking, so we're going to make sure that happens. For how hard it can be to predict the future and to mind read, how did you get so good at those two things?
Life. It's just experience, bro. It's just experience. That's it. Honestly, and I'm not always right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not always right at all. Not at all. I can't even, I can't even tell you the amount of times I've been wrong. Again, know what you know and know what you don't know. And if I know I've made a mistake, then I'm going to own up to it quickly, and we're not going to let it happen again, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to keep moving forward. And that's how it is. To see, here's the other thing. Like when you call a tenant, well, let's say you're doing volleyball, right? You're
Yeah,
doing
yeah, yeah.
volleyball now, right? You, your mind, your eye sees every square inch of that field, of that surface. You also observe the coaches, right? To a certain extent. You observe the referee, right? So you're sort of now. I know you're calling the game, but I know you. You're professional enough to be able to understand that all that's going on. So as you narrow in to the screen, basically to call what's being cut, basically,
Yeah.
right? Somebody has to understand all those moving parts. Again, we may not I can't do what the ref does. I can't do what the fighter does, but I can make sure the fighter knows that when the fighter is ready to go, they're going to go from point A to point B, from point B to point C, and go, here's some context for you. I consider the CFFC to be very much the elite of the AAA for UFC. We send more fighters to the UFC than ever, and they always compliment Rob. That's the boss. They always compliment Rob that they're prepared for it, that the professional experience that they received while working with us in the AAA, and then they get brought up to Dana's group, right?
Mm.
They're ready. They're prepared. They understand the media commitments. They understand the TV thing. They understand the weigh-ins. So again, that's how we're helping these athletes succeed. And by the way, we're giving the crew chances to succeed as well.
You were given that chance to succeed in this business at a young age, and
Yeah.
your list of successes, we could be here all day. There could be an anthology, a Britannica encyclopedia over all that you have done. What people don't see, they'll see what you did, they'll see your name and credits, but why do you feel like that doesn't really tell the story, or that you have more to say than just having your credits at a certain spot? In essence, there's so much more to what you have done that people on the outside don't understand, other than saying, oh, look at the cousin Fred has his name on this. What are people not seeing that you do beyond noticing that you're working on these projects?
Um, I'd have to say that we've created whatever when you see the credits, something has happened. right? Or in some cases, it's about to happen, right? If you get the credits in the front or the back. Um, and like, I don't think people understand just how many people you touched to get to that one point. From the editorial side, all the different characters, to the production side, to the post production side, to the sales side, to the funding side. And again, those are all big ones. You know, that compliment that you talk about. You really do have to be. I don't look at it that way now, but you really, there was a time when you were like, yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Now, what else you got for me? You know what I mean? Now it's like, just appreciate what you got, man, and let's make it really good. And that's where I am at this point.
How much time do you spend reflecting, just in general,
A
life,
lot.
business, and how
Always in
does
the car. I'm always in the car.
let me ask
I'm
you this
always
really
in a
quick.
plane.
Your rate of spending time reflecting, how much more are you doing it in comparison to when you first started in this business?
I understand my head. Well, that's an overstatement. I can I can talk to my head. I can understand it better than I did 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Um, and I can, and again, you learn little tricks that things like that. So yeah.
You understand yourself better. What does that
No,
look like?
I'm able to slow it down at certain points. And Coach Simmons, I didn't even know it then. He gave me what I have now, and that's grace under pressure. Grace under pressure is such
Hmm.
is such an uh, unknown asset, to have that grace when all shit is going loose and everybody's going, and you're just focused and you're able to bang, 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 bang. My kids love that about me. We once rolled up, my one kid, we once rolled up on an accident that happened really fresh. It was a fresh accident and it was not a good one. And she was young and a teen, and she's, Dad, what are you gonna do? And I got out, and you're like, you call 911, you this, you that, and and then you walk away because the professionals got there then. And then 15 minutes later, we're in the car. She's like, wow, Dad, what was that? I was like, you just have to help and you just have to stay focused. And to this day, she says there was a terrorist attack down in Lower Manhattan, near Stuyvesant High School a couple of years ago. The guy took that Home Depot truck
Yeah.
and he went down the West Side bike path and killed, unfortunately, a bunch of people. And the guy stopped and got gunned down right outside my daughter, who we're talking about. She worked at Soul Cycle at the time, right in front of Soul Cycle. And she called me, and it was interesting. But really, what's happening? And she showed me the security footage later. She immediately locked it down. She knew what happened. She immediately locked it down, got all her employees into a safe space, and was able to do that within minutes. And again, that's she sat with me, and we were able to have that grace under pressure. I mean, it was Roy Simmons Jr. in the middle of championship games, in the middle of like unbelievable pressure, ESPN, tens of thousands of fans, craziness on Memorial Weekend. And he'll come into the locker room and he'll start talking about grace under pressure, not how we're going to win, not X's and O's. Simi thought X's and O's were hugs and kisses. Again, this is the mentality that we have in this team environment. That's how I look at it. We embrace you. We really do. And that's we learn that. So grace under pressure, I think, is something when you look at the end and there's a credit and your name is there, there's been a lot of times within that timeline, right? That edit line where you've had to be like, I'm going to be the cool cucumber right here, and we're going to make a decision and we're going to keep moving forward. And then we'll hand it back over to everybody else.
That is inherently who you are. This is the goal of this conversation,
Yeah,
to
man.
get philosophical and to to claw through the layers of who Fred is. And as we conclude this conversation, that is the answer. It's the grace under pressure. And it happens in work. It happens in your personal life. Your daughter sees it. And it all started with obviously your college coach. And as earlier, Fred, we talked about compliments and which ones hold more weight than others. Imitation is flattery. The way that your daughter handled things in that very dire circumstance, that says a lot about her, but also says a lot about you. And I hope, as we also talked about respect, you already have a lot of it around your colleagues that they have for you. But this is just another uptick.
That's
and
awesome,
why
man. Thank you for saying that.
and why, as we sort of put a bow around all these concepts, respect is something we started out talking about, and I hope this gives people more respect for you as well.
Thank you.
Fred Cambria, Bryan Fenley, thanks so much, man, for doing this.
Man. I wish you a lot of luck, man. I really do.